Cheating and sports seem to go hand in hand with one another, as most events have some sort of cheating controversy. There are so many people working hard for years, and it is ruined when one individual decides to fake their way into the big leagues. So, stay tuned to today's video as we discuss the top 10 worst cheaters in sporting history. Number 10. Rosie Ruiz's Boston Marathon shortcut. The first woman to cross the finish line in the Boston Marathon was Rosie Ruiz in 1980. Ruiz was crowned with the famous laurel wreath and lauded as the fastest woman in Boston history. Later on, after all of the celebrations had concluded, it was discovered that Ruiz had actually registered for the race, but had jumped out of the crowd towards the end of the race, just a few hundred feet from the finish line. Obviously, this means she didn't run the entire race and wasn't actually the fastest woman in Boston. In fact, she cheated and only ran a small portion of the marathon, meaning her win for women and for history was completely false. Number 9. Fred Lors hops a ride and wins the race. This is one of the earliest known reporting cheats on record, as it took place in 1904. During the 1904 Olympics in St. Louis, Fred Lors finished the marathon in just under 3 hours and 13 minutes. This was far faster than any other competitor during the race at the time. It turned out that he completed the race by hitching a ride on a passing car for around 11 miles of the long race. Before the discovery of him cheating was found out, he had already posed for photos with his daughter Alice Roosevelt. In response to this, he received a lifetime ban, which was surprisingly lifted after just a year, because he ran in Boston Marathon in 1905. Clearly, cheating wasn't taken as seriously back then, because in today's society, someone getting a lifetime ban would stick for longer than a year. Number 8. Marion Jones looks like a man. The title of this one might sound a bit crazy, but it actually makes a lot of sense when we explain what happened. Marion Jones had won 5 medals at the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney, but agreed to forfeit all of the medals and prizes dating back before the event after she revealed she took performance-enhancing drugs. Many suspected her of taking these drugs, as people around the stadium called out that Jones was looking more and more like a man. It turned out that Marion was taking testosterone and performance-enhancing drugs that slowly changed the way she looked. This was a terrible situation and shows just how far people will go to cheat in sports. Number 7. Thierry Henry's handball cheat. Thierry Henry's clear handball gave France the victory over Ireland in a 2009 World Cup qualifying match. Henry admitted shortly afterward that he handled the ball to aid in getting the ball to teammate William Gallas. The missed call signaled an outcry of rage for Ireland. Wouldn't want to be the referees heading to their cars after this one. This cheat shows that even in sports like handball, it's possible to change the game in your favor by playing against the rules. You might think that most cheats are in sports like running and marathons, but it can basically be in any sport that you can think of. Number 6. Antonio Margarito's plaster of Paris. In sports that use wraps and gloves, many say that certain athletes have things hidden in them to give them an advantage. In boxing, for example, some say that wraps under the gloves could contain rocks and pieces of metal to make sure that the punches going through hurt even more than they already would. A case of this sort of thing actually happened, as in 2009. Antonio Margarito's wraps happened to be confiscated by officials. They confiscated them as a suspicious substance was found on moist pads within his gloves. Someone in his corner noticed that his gloves had way too much wrap and called for a review on them. After the match was over and the substances were identified, it was revealed that this was called plaster of Paris. This was a combination of multiple elements that hardened when wet. In turn, this gave his gloves even more power, as it turned them into a blunt force instrument. Antonio got a suspension, and many of his previous matches were called into question, but nothing could have been proven. Number 5. The doping scandal of 1968 to 1980. Doping in sports is one of the biggest ways to cheat and has been happening for many decades now. However, one of the biggest instances of doping happened between 1968 and 1980, where it is believed that over 10,000 German athletes were on a doping program for the Olympic Games. The East German women's swim team was the poster children for this error, as they were found out to be doping in the sports. The way it was noticed at first was their mannish look from above the waist, as these doping elements had a lot of testosterone in them and would warp the body. It's crazy that this happened even back then, as nowadays, doping isn't anywhere near as popular as it once was, because testing is constant at events. Number 4. Tim Donaghy shames the NBA and his name forever. The former NBA referee intentionally blew calls from 2005 to 07, or made incorrect ones in order to win bets on the point spread of games. He was investigated by the FBI for the matter and was later convicted and sentenced to 15 months in prison. His story shows the effect greed can have, not just on the players and coaches, but most importantly on the officials placed in pressure situations with big dollar figures thrown around. In this case, it really was the refs. Now we are into the top 3 worst cheaters in sporting history, so stay tuned. Number 3. The Hand of God. Diego Maradona was one of the most controversial players in soccer history and had one of the most controversial goals back in 1986. This was during the World Cup quarterfinal between Argentina and England. During the event, Maradona slapped the ball into the net with his left hand, which looked like a header to the referee at the time, Ali bin Nasser. This goal ended up giving Argentina the 21 victory that they needed to win. This was obviously found out later on, and Maradona gave a famous quote about the goal. He said it was a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God. Argentina then went on to win the 1986 World Cup, meaning that Maradona's cheat made this happen. Number 2. Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. The penultimate worst cheating situation in sporting history revolves around Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. In the past, Evander Holyfield had already embarrassed Mike Tyson many times before, after defeating him during a World Heavyweight Championship bout. Holyfield then agreed to fight Tyson again and should have shown up as the better fighter. Tyson was once again mentally unstable and found himself outmatched, far from victory. However, to try and overcome him most likely losing, Tyson pulled out a red card and bit down on Holyfield's ear, removing a chunk from it. The fight continued and Holyfield lost a portion of his other ear as Tyson bit down again, leading to the fight being called off. This match has been cemented into boxing history as the referee had a famous quote when the biting happened. Judge Mills Lane said, "I'll allow it," when talking about the biting. What a crazy cheating scandal. And finally, number 1. Tonya Harding calls a hit on Nancy Kerrigan. In 1994, Tonya and ex-husband Jeff Gillooly conspired with Sean Eckhart and Shane Stamp to attack Harding's skating competitor Nancy Kerrigan at a practice session during the 1994 U.S. Figure Skating Championship. The famous video can easily be found showing Kerrigan yelling, "Why?" repeatedly. The world of figure skating takes constant flack for its loose connection to sports, but it houses some of the worst cheaters in the history of competition. Cheating in sports happens way more than you might think, but nowadays it's actually not as bad as it used to be. There are so many precautions in place in every single spot to get rid of cheating and make sure that no one is on any substance. Take the Olympics for example, where literally every athlete is tested before every event and day by day for illegal substances like doping. Everything needs to be clear and legal for it to go forward. Though sports has a very bad history of cheating back in the late 1960s to early 2000s, it is nowhere near as bad as it used to be. Nowadays, most cheating happens before the games or sporting event even happens, whether it's cheating on tests to get in or cheating through doping way before an event to morph your body. And that's the end of today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed this latest video. If you did, would you please let us know down in the comments section below? It would be very helpful. Make sure to like the video, comment down below, and of course, subscribe to the channel with the notification bell rung. Thank you for watching today's video. Bye.